Today we do have a special guest that is going to educate us on so many important stuff that we need to know as dads and also as entrepreneurs. And there's so much I can talk about my guest today, but I'll rather have him introduce himself and so we can get to learn about him. Please welcome my friend.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. It's a privilege to be on with you today. And what can I tell you? What would you like to know? I'm out here in Northern California. I'm a proud dad of a 3-year-old hurricane. She's pretty much everything in my world right now. That and my wife. And is honestly, throughout my life, I wasn't sure that I was going to end up here. There was a large part of my life where I didn't think I was going to have children. And now it has become the sort of center point for so much that I do. I'm sure you can relate that the kids is not just the reason you do it, it's also the sort of reward for doing these things as well. You get to see the time, you get to feel good about what you're doing with your kids, and that to me is just a wonderful feeling.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I know you'll be helping us a little bit to see how the financial structures can become the legacy engines. Because you know, I want us to really focus more about legacy. Because I know we've been thinking about legacy. Oh, is once I'm gone, whatever I left behind is legacy. But I think it starts from now. Like what we're doing now every day with our family. So I'm very happy that you're here today. So maybe like you can tell us a little bit how how has the fatherhood influenced your finance journey?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I sort of started a professional career in a different way. I was a captain of what we'd call luxury mega yachts. If you've ever watched a program like Below Deck on Bravo, it was like that, but completely different. Those kinds of boats, but in a sort of really professional way. And living out there as a young man in the Caribbean, very few ties, etc. My thoughts really weren't about building, collecting generational wealth. It was about living in that moment. But ever since I've sort of met my wife, settled down, started to put together a family, my thoughts have really turned to what am I setting up? What am I achieving? And, as you just said, what am I leaving behind? Am I creating a legacy? Is there a something I'm going to be able to hand down to my child so that I know when it's her time to sort of move out into the world, she's going to have everything she needs for a really good start. I feel like that's my priority now as a father is to try and give her at least the quality of life that I had. I had a wonderful childhood, um, that or better. And I feel that or better is the driving force behind trying to create that generational wealth that you talk so much about. Um, and how do we effectively create that? Even if we don't feel like we have the, massive wealth right now, how do we start just laying the groundwork, using our work and our businesses to start putting that in line so that our children are set up for a really secure financial future?
Amazing, amazing. Thank you. I think that's a great point. And you know, talking about this, actually, I was sharing with you earlier about one of my guests. He's helping families to advance their kids in terms of the colleges and stuff like that. And we were looking, how is the entrepreneurship, you know, how do we deal with that in terms of investing for them while they're still in school from the young age, and also for ourselves, as business people. So how is that working? Because a lot of times we have either like a for profit or non-profit, and
Yeah.
companies, and when you work for them, you kind of invest this this retirement money. So how can we do that as entrepreneurs? I know that's a big topic. If you can break it down for us a little bit.
Yeah, and if we start at a very high level, there was a Morningstar article last year that quoted a study that said the number one way Americans become millionaires is with disciplined long-term investing, the kind most often seen with automatic withdrawals from your paychecks, right? So that sort of includes 401ks and 403bs. If you're not familiar with the term 403b, that is essentially a 401k, that retirement account, but for a not-for-profit organization, just in case anyone hadn't heard of that. And so with that in mind, knowing that sort of long-term approach, that disciplined investing, can be a key to generating the kind of wealth that we would want for ourselves, but also future generations, then how do we start leveraging what we're doing to create that, right? So, and there's a few different ways to consider this. There is obviously us as the business driver or the business owner. There is the effect on the business itself. And obviously, if you have employees, how are we giving them the tools they need for a secure financial future as well, right?
Right.
And for a long time, and I know I felt this, I started two businesses when I lived in New York. And the way I ran it is I was working with a lot of contractors. And the reason I worked with contractors is because I felt that it was too time consuming, too expensive on the business to put in place these necessary benefits, things like health insurance and retirement benefits. And I always struggled with that because I felt like I was not providing A, myself, and B, my employees, everything they needed to put their lives together, right? It was easy, but it wasn't effective, right? And that was back in 2009. So that was a long, long time ago. The world has revolved many times since then, and things have really improved. So now we're at a situation where the technology is in place for people to leverage these kinds of retirement benefits at a price point that wasn't around before and at an administrative burden that wasn't around before, right? So now, if you're a one-person shop, so let's say I started my own business and it's just me, can I attach a 401k to my business? Now, absolutely you can, right? And we'll talk about why there are some great tailwinds for that as well, right? But it's also from one person all the way up to several thousands. If your business is truly off and running, you can attach that 401k or 403b with very, very little sort of hassle on the administrative side. Providers will now take all of that off of your plate and do it for you, so you don't even have the risk of doing it, right? And also, what you're going to see is now that you've got this powerful benefit in place, your people are going to want to stay with the organization, right? So that oftentimes with startups and entrepreneurs, there can be that turnover of employees early on. Now, if you can give them a stabilizing benefit, a long-term benefit like a 401k, there are many studies. I saw one from Gusto the other day that said we can reduce that first year turnover by 40% by having a qualified retirement plan. That's huge, right? 32% on the long term. So if you can reduce your attrition rates, already you're creating value for the business. You're keeping that knowledge and you're not having to put all the hidden expenses that comes into having to rehire. So there's a number of things there that can really drive forwards, not to mention the fact that as the entrepreneur, as the sort of driver behind this business, you now have a way of putting your hard-earned money away for yourself and future generations.
Absolutely. It reminds me like the book Profit First. A lot of times, how like you kind of put money away for, whether, this is the profit or this is the taxes. But when you add the whole issue with the retirement, I think that's a game changer right there for you.
It really is, and not only it's very rare to create a situation where it is win 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 all the way round,
Right.
right? And so the right benefit for an organization can really create that. I mean, obviously your employees benefit when they're able to save for the long term. The company can benefit when you've got ways of being able to legally shelter money profits from taxes from the government. You as the owner benefit because you are getting to put that money away in a tax preferred environment. And surprisingly, the government, local, state, federal government, all win as well because when you hit retirement, will be able to fund yourself, be able to have discretionary income, all of these things which are economic boosts to the sort of national and local infrastructure as well. So because of that, what we've seen is that the federal government has actually created a number of powerful incentives to get primarily small businesses to connect with retirement benefits, right? And the reason being is historically, if you were a company of less than 100 people, you would have, I think it was around 3/4 of those companies offer retirement benefits. But if you hit that 50 employee mark, it drops away to being less than 50%. And if it's less than 10 employees, it drops away substantially even further. Meaning, if you work at a small company, whether you decide to save for retirement or not, in more than half the cases, you're not even getting that option through your business. All right? So now the federal government's come in and said, well, that's something that has to change. The technology exists for small businesses to attach their plans, right? How can we change the landscape, tilt it in favor of small businesses so that they can start the ball rolling with retirement? And so what you saw at the end of 2022 was something called the Secure Act 2.0. And in terms of retirement and small business, this is one of the most meaningful legislations out there. And the reason being is it has created pretty massive tax incentives to get your plan up and running, right? The first one is if you're less than 50 employees, they will give you a tax credit that can match up to $5,000 a year for each of the first 3 years that could match the cost of setting up the plan. So if you had, I don't know, let's do some rough numbers. If you had 40 employees and it was costing you $4,000 a year to run your retirement plan, right, you could receive that exact amount as a tax credit from the government. So essentially they're paying you they are creating a system where you could start a plan for free, right? So that, who doesn't like things for free, right?
Right.
And then on top of that, if your business is profitable, or even if it's not and it's still the right choice, you can, if you're giving your employees a non-elective contribution or even a matching contribution, you can actually get tax credits for that as well if those employees are making less than 100,000. So the government's not only incentivizing setting up a plan, it's also incentivizing the business giving money to its employees through matching, non-elective contributions, profit sharing, those kinds of things. So really, all of that, plus the fact that any contributions the business makes on behalf of their employees is also tax deductible as well as being tax credit. All right, so you almost get like a powerful 2-for-1 there. And again, this is mostly driven at those businesses less than 50 employees, but it's still in place to a degree up to 100 employees, right? So that section of the U.S. economy, and we all know that the U.S. economy has this backbone of small business. The government has said now is the time for those businesses to start connecting their employees with those retirement benefits.
Oh, amazing! It's a masterclass. Thank you. Um, like one of my questions, was going to include where, whether, when you go back, if you go, you had to go back when you started your journey, what would you do differently? I know you have shared about this magic point here with the retirement accounts. Anything else? Maybe, like whether is wellness or like relationships. Anything else you would have done differently?
Oh, now that's a great question, and I have a lot of answers. I was married before and ran a
Hmm.
business with my partner before.
Hmm.
Me personally, I would do that differently. That did not work out great for me, but I've seen people have a lot of success with that. What I will say is, and I think this is in line with a lot of what you say, is finding, yes, you can work all the hours that come with the sunlight, right? You can work all of those hours, but you must remember that you are a limited resource and you have to protect and develop that resource at the same time, right? It's you've got to find ways to recharge and, if possible, take some of that responsibility onto other people, whether it's your direct employees or even virtual employees or virtual assistants, whatever it takes for you to buy back some of that time for you and your family, right? Um, I see a lot of people work so hard for their family, but they never, so they all those hours go into creating the generational wealth. But then you hear this moment of, I wish my dad was around, right? And doesn't that just get you right through there, right?
Right.
So, I mean, for me, I've been super fortunate with the company that I work with and the bosses that I've had who have said, yes, work hard, but prioritize your family. And that, I think, is a key mantra to live by.
That is amazing, and thank you. I just we are publishing a book currently. I'm involved in, Crack the Rich Code, and this book I shared, like in my section where I was sharing this information was, you always start with, you automate, and then after that you you know you delegate, and then finally you employ, because sometimes people they start to employ
Yep.
while in the meantime they could easily automate or just delegate some of these things to contractors here and there. So but I think from us talking now, it makes sense, to, if you can explore and make it to where you can employ someone, the sooner they, I think the better. This is amazing. This,
Yeah.
this changes the whole perspective that I was having before.
And it is important to evaluate what are you working for,
Right.
right? Some people work to work. They love it. That's their driver. Okay. For me, I work because, yes, I love what I do. That's why I work where I work. But the reason I work is to provide a life for my family, and I am part of that life. You know what I mean? I want to be, a husband to my wife, and I want to be a father to my child.
And you want to have that time to be there. So this is definitely, you need the help going forward for sure. This is amazing, brother. Wow. So I know, like earlier, you shared about the retirement plan and how they provide more than just benefits. They help you with the building that loyalty. Is there any example of how a plan has changed the game for, let's say, how is it? Because I was looking, if you look at this so far, like you have some people that are crashing like the retirement accounts. Like I don't want to like drop names. Like there's a gentleman that he's famous for doing these 10x investments. Whether like he favors mostly buying houses and stuff like that. Like the commercial or like the residential buildings and stuff like that. But he insists that we should definitely make use of those retirement accounts. Like take it from there. Don't just leave it there. What's the best way for people really to take advantage of their retirement accounts? Is it smart to take it and do other investments, or is it smart to kind of take it easy with those investments if they're doing stocks, they don't go aggressive? What's your comment on that?
Well, I'm going to give you an answer that's both an answer and not an answer at the same time, right?
Please.
The answer is it is such an individualistic situation, right? And what I would, if I was to provide any advice, my advice would be go seek advice, right? And so while like I am not a financial advisor, no one should be listening to me as to what should I do with my investments. If you are listening to me, we're in a deep, dark place, right? But there are folks out there who can look at your particular goals, look at your particular situation. When do you want to retire? Are you hoping to work till you're 67, or do you want to retire when you're 55? And with that comes a very sort of nuanced individual picture, right? Do you have kids? Which colleges do you want to send them to, right? What lifestyle do you want? All of these answers affect how you would piece together not just your retirement plan, but your general wealth plan, your estate plan, all of these things. And if you're sophisticated and experienced enough to know all of that internally, great, congratulations. I'm not. That's where I turn to a sort of certified financial advisor, right? Because that person has experience, has the depth of knowledge, because a lot of this is super complex, and can also, more than just provide the guidance, can also be the cheerleader of the strategy that you set up in the beginning, so that when the market has ups, the market has downs, when the market's in a down, that person can remind you of what you're in it for, right? And that generally things go up and down, and maybe it's all going to be okay. If you go it alone and make those decisions, who knows how you're going to feel in the hard moments. So my sort of reply back to your original question is, put somebody who has skin in your game, right? So someone who has a financial fiduciary responsibility to your outcomes, have them on your team and talk with them about what's right for you, right? As I said, one of the metrics we go off of, Morningstar quoted that report. The number one way Americans become millionaires is through long-term disciplined investing, right? A 401k retirement account is the major tool for doing that. It's not the only tool, and you should look at what is right for your situation.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you. This is a very clever answer, and I appreciate that. And folks should definitely pay attention to that. It's like accepting any advice out there without looking at the source. It's better to get to the right teacher. Like, so to speak. So this is perfect.
Yeah. And I would also caution listening to one source, right? I would go out and explore multiple sources. An advisor would be one of those.
Right.
And, look at other options. And so that you're seeing, is there a trend, right? If there was this one way to go get incredibly rich very quickly, why isn't everybody doing it, right? Who else says that this is a good idea? Who else? And so that would be my sort of asterisk to all of this is if, and I think it's a rule for life, if you're going off of just one source for your information, I think that puts you in a precarious situation.
Yeah. So do your homework for sure, so that you have an understanding of so far what is being advised, and after that, definitely do. Like in medicine, like you call a second opinion. How many people saved themselves from surgeries. So you
Yep.
definitely have to kind of, like you mentioned, have like multiple sources to just verify. Oh yeah, this is true, because several big guys, they're talking about the same thing. So for sure, there's no, this has been well researched.
Yep.
Like reference on that. So that's perfect, my friend. Awesome. So can we jump into like any personal you know journey, like like maybe a little bit about your dad? What have you learned from him, and what have do you take anything from him that you're implying today with your daughter? This is
Wow. I don't know if you know this, but today is actually the anniversary of the day my dad died. So, um, not
sorry.
it. It was in 2019, so it's been a minute, and I've reflected on that so much. What am I passing on to my daughter that sort of came from my father, right? Um, and he was an English gent. He was always nice, and I that was the first piece, right? Is there is a space and a path to always being kind. Kind is not a sign of weakness. You can be strong and kind at the same time. And I've always taken that deeply to heart is how can I find a way, even in challenging times, to still respect people, to still try and build people up. Um, in fact, this quote that sits behind me is from Booker T. Washington, which says, "If you want to lift yourself up, lift up someone else." Right? Um, and so it's for me, it's being able to install that empathy, that kindness, but without being weak for my daughter. She is going to enter a world that is currently divided, that is uh, has replaced the should I say something mean with I'm just going to say everything, and she has to find a way, a path to walk through that in a way that still makes her feel good, right? And I hope that what I'm giving from my father to her is a way of being secure in who she is, being secure in the way she acts with people, that she knows wherever she goes, she can do the right thing and feel good about it. That's what I want for her.
Powerful. And I am sorry, I didn't. I'm not a magician or anything like that. I'm. Wow, this is powerful. That's one thing. As parents, we always want to leave them with the best information, with like with the best scenarios. Because you worry, like you mentioned, about the division, or if you worry about the careers, you think about AI, and is are they going to have a job? What's going on? You think about all these million things sometimes, but I think you're doing your best. As long as we're doing our best, we should be okay.
I know, and that's the hard thing, isn't it, as a parent?
Right.
Not just the
Right.
father, but I'm sure a lot of mothers feel this way. Like
Absolutely.
we do our best, and then we worry, is our best good enough? Right? and
Right.
when it's impossible to do more, we're tired, we're working every day, and we're trying to do our best. I just try and remember, if I am present, kind, and engaged with my child, everything else can kind of work itself out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My friend, thank you so much for the masterclass. The information that you have shared today is a game changer. You know, I was thinking about it, but I think, like most parents now, they'll definitely have an eye-opening moment if they haven't been looking into this. So I appreciate you. So how can folks maybe consult with you about this, because it's not going to be easy. So I think it's best to have you as a resource and stuff. How can they find you, my friend?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously, who we are is Human Interest, and you can find us at humaninterest.com. We have all kinds of resources there, including a what we call the Learning Center, so you can get on there and get all kinds of resources. But also, if you just want to connect with a human being, find me on LinkedIn. I'm not hiding. I'm delighted. You can come find me, ask me questions, and if I don't know the answers, I will connect you with the person who does. The world is too short to sit in that sort of unenlightened darkness. So if there's something I can do to support you, the answer is yes, and then I'll ask how.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. I truly appreciate you, and thank you to Mara for organizing this for us. I look forward to chatting with you again, and probably collaborate again, because this is a big topic, and I hope we can delve further into that for sure.
It would be an honor and a pleasure.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you, my friend. We'll be in touch.
Same.
Thank you. Thank you. And guys, please don't forget to subscribe to dadpuzzles.com. We have YouTube, Instagram. Just give us a follow, ask your questions, and don't forget to follow my friend here, Marc Fowler, with his amazing company, so we can learn and be better, and take advantage of the system, because the system, the smart people take advantage of it. Look at Mr. Trump himself and other folks, how they take advantage of taxes situation, all those things. Only the people that we think we are kind or something. There's no relationship to kindness. This is just you doing the best for you and your family. So take advantage of that, please. Thank you, guys.